Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. This week's show, I want to talk about should I stay or should I go in regard to your current role? What's the drivers and what's to consider when and if you're going to make that move? So, without delay, let's get on with this week's show. Should I stay or should I go? No, it's not a Clash song. Well, technically it is a Clash song, but we're not here to talk about that today. No, today's show is about how and when will you know it's time to move on in your career. When do you decide that professionally you're deciding to have a different role, you want a different location, you want a different company? When does it not fit anymore with you? When have you outgrown it? And when is it time for a new challenge? Now, in the world of changing jobs, I was a bit of a late bloomer. See, I was someone who spent 14 years with my first company, straight out of school at 16, within one firm. Now, I did have a number of roles in that firm. I went from an engineer to a project engineer to a shift manager, doing people management all the way through. But it was also at the same firm and in the same location. Now, there's a point when you had to make a change. And that move was something that I decided to do way back now, going back, probably over 15 years ago. And it was triggered when I realised that I was still being seen as that 16-year-old apprentice. When it came to some of the higher positions, I was getting overlooked. And even in interviews, you could feel that they knew you so well. And there's nothing wrong with being at one place for a long time. I'm not saying you should automatically move. That's not where I'm coming from here. I just found that wherever I wanted to progress, I would have had to be somewhere else because it wasn't going to work. And to be fair, that big decision was one of the hardest decisions I've made in my career, to make that first move, because it was like leaving a family. When you've been there 14 years, they've seen you grow up, they've seen the good times, the bad times. And it was the hardest day. The last day, the people that I'd grown up, I was in tears. They'd done speeches, they did some gifts. I was in floods of tears when I left there. And I think that's just normal because that first move is always the hardest, they say. And in my case, it was. But reflecting back, it was the right move. And it's like growing up. There's a point when you need to move out of your parents' house and you need to start your own. And it was the same with the job. Despite the fact I'd been there that long, it was almost like a time to move on. And I knew it was the right time then. Because you can get comfortable and you can stay there sometimes a bit too long. But again, there's nothing wrong with staying there. You know, we have people that I've worked with who've been in the businesses 30 odd years, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as they're fulfilled, as long as they're challenging, that idea of longevity I totally respect. But one thing that will happen in the way that you're working these days is it's becoming less and less normal for someone to stay in one job or one company and one location over the whole career. It gets to a point where people will start to move, and you notice yourself, you may be listening to this thinking you've done 3 or 4 different jobs, especially if you've come through as a graduate, you've gone through university, you may have done some lower paid jobs and then you've moved through. But I think the question today, let's get back to that, is should I stay or should I go? And as with everything, there's some factors to consider. And I think there's some really big ones to start those decisions when you start looking at the job. Firstly, do you love the job? You know, what you are doing, do you love it? You know, do you love working there? I know they sound basic, but, you know, are the things that you're enjoying in work something that keeps you there? Do you enjoy the people? And do you are you good at what you do? So you can start looking at those for a start. And there might be a point where you go, I love doing the job, I love the location, I love the place, I'll stay. And location's a big thing as well. You know, some people love to travel. They don't mind travelling long distances to commute to work. They don't mind coming down and staying, 3 or 4 days away from home to work, having the long days. But others, especially, when your life changes and the families change, you want to be near a home that you can get back and spend time at home. So that's really important that you look at where you are and where you're coming from in regards to travel. Then there's the big thing of money. Now, obviously, money gets you through the door. It's not voluntary, unless you are in the voluntary sector, but it's not really. It's something that gets you there. But does it motivate you fully? If you give you more money, Could you still become bored? If I paid you as a security guard sat in a security hut, for instance, twice, 3 times the salary, it'd be nice for so long, but the love of the job would be more of the driver than the fact that you're getting paid more. And obviously progression, do you look at where you are and think, I can go do something else, I can really add value in this business with a next level up or a sideways move? Or is there a point where you've become to the top of the level that you're going to go at? Which is exactly what happened with me in my first job. I got to the point where there was nowhere else for me to really go. And that then made the decisions easier for me. And then looking at, what's coming up for you? As you get older, you have different drivers. So is there a driver to move on? And sometimes, remember, when we're talking about moving on, we're not always talking about moving up into a next level or a higher paid job. Sometimes you might actually want to step down, take it more easier. I've interviewed people for roles where they've said, I'm in the back end of my career in my mind. I've got 5 more years left and I'd love to work here and really add value, but I'm not interested in going anywhere else. And that's another good thing. When you've got your teams together, you've got to know some are going to be pushing and wanting to progress, and others won't. They'll want to be happy doing what they want. And obviously the health. Can you do the role that you're doing? And is the job really going to be there in another 10, 15 years' time? So if you're a worker outside and the work is physical, can you maintain that work? Or even if it's inside and you're doing a lot of lifting and carrying, is that something that you can do? Modern businesses, we have taken a lot of manual handling out with other devices, but there's still a level of, of energy that you need to expend, and that can be difficult. And also the idea of, the shifts. If you're on a night shift, is it going to suit you? It might have suited you when your family were young, but now they're older, do you really want to be there? In regard to those shift patterns, the long hours. And also the moral side of it. Does that firm that you're working for have the ethics that you have? I've been looking at roles in the past for abattoirs and sort of place like that, and it just doesn't fit to me that I would work in an environment like that. So from my mind, it wouldn't really suit me. So you've got that few things to consider. You've got the love of the job. Are you good at that job? Do you love doing it? Is the location right for you? Do you like the travel? Is the money good? Or can it be better? Or even less if you're going to move sideways or down? Is there some progression if you want to move? What's that driver? Is it driving up or down? Do you want to grow? Or actually you're happy with doing what you're doing? Is it going to be healthy for you in the next few years? And does it fit to the ethics? And of course, it's a choice. You can stay and grow in a business. You can educate yourself, you can learn, you can move on, you can grow different skills. And I know a lot of professionals who have worked in the same company for years and love it. And there's no overarching rule when it comes to these kind of decisions. It's going to be about you and your family and support. What do you want to do? Do you love doing what you're doing and it motivates you every day? Then stay. But if not, and you're becoming bored, angry, stuck in the same place, overlooked, then maybe it's time to go out there and have a look. I don't think anyone in history has ever had a last word of saying, I wish I'd worked more hours at work. I wish I'd have stayed down later at work. Especially that job I really hated. I wish I'd have been there for longer. So just think about that when you're looking at it. And then, of course, there's moving on. How do you first start that move? Well, we're living in a really, really lucky age when it comes to job searching. I remember when I was younger and looking for jobs, you'd get the Yorkshire Post on Thursday afternoon and they have all the jobs in there and you'd circle what you were going to apply for. Now, with the internet and obviously LinkedIn, it's so much easier to look what's out there and find roles. And in fact, recruiters normally are beating your door down. So when you're looking at your digital side, your LinkedIn page, making sure that's up to date and get enough followers in some of those recruitment world, and they'll soon be coming offering you jobs. Don't take the first one as, wow, they really want me. Normally, they're just general emails they'll send to everyone. We've seen your CV and it looks interesting for this role. And it's just something that's sent out. So have a bit of sense when you're looking at which agency to get with. And then engage with the person about what you want and what they're looking for to fulfill. And then look at the company. So when it gets to the company itself, and you might be going for an interview, just do a bit of background work on that company. Because as we said at the beginning, it may be you're just moving sideways to a different place, different people, but it's still the job you didn't like in the first place. The money wasn't any better, you didn't have much progression, it wasn't healthy for you, and it didn't hit your moral compass. So, just be aware that time is a great thing when you're looking for jobs, and it's easier to find a role when you're in a role. So you don't have to jump unless, obviously, you're going to be pushed, but that's a different story. Well, thanks for listening to this week's show. I hope it's given you some thoughts on staying or going, and I hope that you can give me some feedback. So please remember managermattpodcast@gmail.com for any questions or queries or feedback. So please send it. And of course, please keep listening. Please keep sharing. And I look forward to seeing you or hearing from you in the near future. Well, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.